Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Jay.
Hello.
Hey.
What's going on?
What an opening, fellas. We did it.
Yes.
We got him.
Yeehaw.
And Mike's not allowed to make fun of me anymore because the one time he hosted, he asked the same question. So
Yeah.
It's unfortunately very natural, I think, to be like, hey, how you doing? I still blame you because unlike myself, you have had a ton of practice to get over it.
that's true. That's accurate. I've had over 100 episodes now to come up with a new opening. So
yeah, about 150.
But you know what we like about you, Kyle, over here at the Fifth Trooper Network is your consistency.
There you go.
That's what
fair.
we like about you.
Very
there you go. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. We are going to talk briefly about, we got like a Wookiee preview, slight Wookiee preview, small Wookiee preview.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to hit Empire Commanders because we did Rebel Commanders a couple episodes ago now. Last time we did a slot, we hit Rebel Commanders. So we're going to talk about Empire Commanders today. But before that, you got any housekeeping for us, Jay?
Yeah. A few things. So, number one, I would encourage all of you who are listening, if you like what you hear here on this podcast and you like the blog and you want to support us even more, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/the Fifth Trooper. And the neat thing about that is we do a third podcast, right? So we have Scoundrels, we have the Beginner's Guide to Legion, and then we have a third podcast called After Dark. And basically we just talk a lot of crap on that one. And we really dive a lot deeper into our feelings on certain units. Mike and I, what was it, last week or the week before, argued about Empire lists and what would play. And so you can kind of hear some of our deeper thoughts and like what we could do on there for you guys. If, like, for instance, we're going to just cover kind of all the commanders as quick as we can today, but we'll deep dive on certain units and sometimes talk 20-30 minutes about just one unit sometimes. So there's a lot more.
What he really means by that is he'll propose a unit he wants to play in Team League, and I'll tell him why I'm not going to register that list because it's bad.
And then I'll argue it for 20 minutes. So that's how that goes. And then also you can hear like a lot of behind the scenes stuff that's going on here at the Fifth Trooper Network, which is great as well. So that's my first little thing. The second one I wanted to talk to everyone about is sidebars. If you ordered sidebars, the boat is due into port next week, which is great. So soon after that, I should get them in my possession and then we can mail them out. I think we're sold out of some of the four faction ones that we did. I'd have to go look, but I know we're sold out of at least two, maybe three of them. We still do have red and blue left. So, if you want those, go ahead and check out our website. And then the third and final thing, this is kind of cool, is if you weren't aware, we kind of put out a help wanted poster, I guess, for blog writers. And we actually have put 4 new blog writers on staff. And we're really excited about that. I'm not gonna tell you who they are. We're gonna introduce them later on at some point, or they'll introduce themselves. But I'm very excited about that. We're gonna get you guys new, fresh perspectives about Legion, and ideally have way more content for you guys to kind of eat up and absorb. And really that Patreon support that I was talking about earlier, that's what helps do stuff like that, right? And so if you want more content, more voices from the community, that's supporting us on Patreon really goes a long way, and or our store, right? And so we really appreciate all the support you guys have given us and listening. It's been great, so thank you.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great.
So speaking of excited, let's do some hobby talk real quick before we actually get to the meat. So I have, in fact, been doing some hobbying. I've been working on my B2s, my B2 battle droids. I'm thoroughly struggling. So basically, they're metallic, right? I did like standard metallic stuff, and then I actually dry brushed them blue to get like this cold blue metal look, which I think is Pretty cool.
That's
Uh-huh.
painted.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I just thought that was bare plastic.
Oh my gosh. All right. The camera clearly not. I will post the picture
am I crazy,
somewhere.
Jay? Does that not look like bare plastic on
Just
camera?
look gray. Yeah,
Oh,
it just
all right.
looks like
Well,
solid gray.
All right. Clearly.
Like
Good
he's
as-
like, I put a little blue on there. I'm like, all right. It's a little blue for
Yeah, I was
sure.
like, is that even primed, Kyle? Like-
all right. Well, I think they look good, but clearly not being captured by the webcam. I'm struggling with the squad markings.
I think you paint each squad's heads a different color.
Oh, I
So-
don't like that.
Okay.
I would go shoulder pad, like one, like
Do
a,
they really
like,
have shoulder pads?
like the right.
They
Isn't
do.
there a piece? Yeah,
Do they?
Yeah.
like
so
the right.
Actually, this guy kind of you can't see it because you can't see anything on the camera. But I kind of tried like the shoulder pads a different. I don't know. It looks weird
All right.
because there's two problems I have. The first is with it looks cool, trust me, but the cold blue metal look, like only certain colors work well with blue.
Okay.
It's not like a true metallic where you can paint almost anything over it and it like complements it.
You've
It's-
painted yourself into a box, you say.
I have, yes, literally painted myself into a box.
So what if you didn't put it on the mini at all? What I do with all my units is I paint the rim, the base rim, a
So
solid color. So like I'll have an all orange squad or all black.
yeah, so my issue with that is that A, I don't like how it looks, but B, my B1s are actual, like they have, across the shoulders and stuff, and their bases are all black. So
This is a little bit more like hidden, but you could also do like, I mean, how many squads of these are you?
4.
4. Okay, I think that's doable, right? So I think this is gonna cost maybe a little bit of money, but like you could like chop up clone heads and put clone head bases on one squad, and then like chop up rebel trooper heads and put rebel trooper heads on one, and then you could do like stormtroopers on another, or I don't know, something like that. You could kind of like unify them, and you could even do it like like do like phase 1 heads on one and phase 2 heads on another if you wanted to like keep it a little bit more.
That's a super interesting idea.
There's also extra heads in all the clone.
This is very
boxes.
40K too.
It is.
Which I know you like, Kyle. So
I do.
There's extra clone heads in all the clone boxes. I don't know. I don't think you actually purchased any, but if you need clone heads, I can probably send you some.
I mean, do you have 28 of them?
I probably have 28 clone heads. You could even do all clone, like
And
you
just do different
all and do
colors on the
different
clone
colored
heads.
helmets. Yeah,
I'm digging this idea.
yeah.
Do you have 28 clone heads? Seriously?
I think I probably I bet you I have more than 28.
like extra ones that you don't need.
Yeah. Like I like in like every pack, I'm pretty sure there's like like different variations of, like the helmets and stuff.
well,
I think.
I do have that resin printer, Kyle, as well. So we could definitely get you some heads.
That's true. All right. Well, let me fiddle around with a couple schemes over the next couple days, and then I will potentially take you up on the clone head offer, Mike.
Yeah, I mean,
like it.
I might have to dig them out of storage,
Yeah.
which might take me a couple days, but not a big deal.
Man, could you imagine going to some tournament? You just started playing. You see Kyle across the table with 4 squads of B2s, and they all have clone heads on their bases.
And I'll be like, yeah, I bought all these clones just to put heads on the bases.
You tell them you put a clone head on for everyone you've destroyed in the last 2 tournaments.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess if you went with a color scheme for the clone heads, you could even like, you could put multiple helmets on each base if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I would do like a different color scheme for each clone head.
Right. But I mean, like
for each squad would have a different colored. Yeah.
Yeah, and
These-
then you
these-
could just use the colors from the clone squads, right? And just like you could even have Ahsoka's troops there and paint their little helmets, and
There you
you
go.
could do all kinds of cool stuff.
I could match the dot of the eye or whatever that thing is on their shoulder color to the clone head color. There you go. Now you're speaking my language.
I think
Which I painted red, and it looks pretty good. Clearly, you can't tell, but
no, It doesn't even look primed.
All right. Well, let me fiddle around with it the next couple days, and I will. That's an interesting idea. Listeners, if you have ideas too, let me know, because I don't know, for like I had no problem doing like, because my B1s are tan-ish. They're like that beige tan color. I had no problem doing like multiple different colors across the shoulders of just paint, and it looked fine. But for whatever reason with the B2s, like anything I try with different colors on the different panels and stuff, it just looks weird. So
I also think B1s are a little bit easier to freehand, probably.
I mean, that's not an issue so much as I just think it looks funny.
Sure.
I have seen one thing I've seen that's interesting, and I can't decide whether I like it or not, is like the Battlefront 2 style chevron thing, the V across the chest in the front.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I'm not either. I mean,
Not a fan.
it's just, it overpowers the metallic look too much, in my opinion.
I'm sorry. When you say chevron, the only thing I can think of is Stargate.
Oh.
Chevron 2 locked.
Yeah.
Mike and I play this game a lot when we're talking about things.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll do the clone heads. That sounds fun. I don't know if I'll be able to pull that off in time for. I might have just colored room bases at Atlantic City, but we'll see.
Yeah, you can always redo the bases, right?
Yeah.
Well, or just add clone heads onto them. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like if you do colored rims now, like changing the color of the rim later is very easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just paint it black.
I mean, that's how I do all mine. I really like that way. It just helps. I mean, it helps me mostly. Like I don't really care about anybody else. I'm just like, what's that squad is that guy in? Okay, red, great. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm big on the shoulder pads as a guy that played Space Wolves.
Yeah, and I did Space Marines in 40K. I could easily do the I don't know.
Space Wolves have cool shoulder pads, though,
they do,
unlike the rest of you plebs.
Come on. Well, clearly cooler than B2s, because B2s really don't have cool shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. That's my hobby woes. Did you guys do any hobbying?
I painted another ARC model, so I'm up to 2.
That's more than one.
And by that I mean I've painted a strike team unit leader, or I guess he's not a unit leader because he doesn't have a sniper rifle, and 5s so far. So making some progress. I also have a couple other half painted, and I finished basing. I've got like 2 squads of my Imperial army left to base. So I painted most of my Imperial army like a year ago, and I like set it aside, and like I just didn't base it after I finished painting it, and I was like, I'll get to this later. So I did it. I did most of them like a week ago. So I've got 1 stormtrooper squad and a short trooper squad left to base of everything that's painted, and so I made some progress there, which was cool. I also have been toying around with an army painter wet palette.
Ooh.
I asked Jay to send me one. It's like, I want to mess around with this. I need something to make my painting. So my issue is that I don't like to do long paint sessions. I really detest it.
Sure.
And like I like to be like, I like to be able to be like, okay, I like am feeling like I want to be done. I want to be done. And often when I'm painting, I feel like I can't actually stop because of where I am in the process.
Yeah.
And my hope was that making the wet palette would like assist in that process. I'm working out the kinks. I found that when I come back to the wet palette, and so for those of you that are maybe not familiar with the wet palette, you kind of like put like some like paper in this tray that's like got a small amount of water in it, and it's supposed to keep the paint wet for like long periods of time, and it makes mixing easy. There's a lot of like cool things you can do with it that I haven't figured out yet, I'm sure. But
does it just have a sponge?
So it's got the army painter wet palette has like a sponge in the bottom, and then it has some like special paper that goes over the
acrylic
top
paper.
Yeah. And then it's got some like nice brush holders and stuff, so you can like put like 20 brushes in the top of it, and It kind of like is like a mini transport case, though I feel like if you flip it upside down, you're kind of screwed. Like it's they're like, this is a good transport case, and I'm thinking like, not if you put it in your luggage. Like, don't put it in your luggage.
Sure.
But so the issue that I've had so far, which I think is just me not using wet palettes a ton, is so I put the paint on the wet palette, I used it. It actually, like, the consistency was kind of cool. You don't like have to like thin your paints really, because it kind of thins them for you.
Well, you thin them on the palette.
Yeah, right. You like swish it around a little bit, and to me that was like, oh, thank God. Like that was like a big step that I, because you like screw up the amount of water you get in it, and then you got to go back and get some more, and if you put too much water in it, you're screwed, and like you got to start all over. So this was nice for that. What I did find was like 2 to 3 days later, when I went back to paint, the paint was super thin on the palette, and like you kind of have to like refill the paint a little bit. Which I didn't expect, but in hindsight makes sense.
Yeah, so I've been using a wet palette for a while now. It was one of those things. There's basically like 2 points in my, I've been painting miniatures since I was 12, because that's when I started playing 40K. But there's like 2 things in my painting experience that sort of like changed the entire thing for me. The first one was getting a wet palette. And it's because of the reasons you mentioned, primarily like the paint consistency. It just makes getting your paint consistency so much better. I haven't had a lot of success with the like saving paint from one session to the next thing. I
haven't really either. I'm like watching these YouTube videos and reading these articles. They're like, you can save your paint for like 5 days at a time, and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's like a secondary benefit of it. It's for me, it's mostly just how easy it makes getting the correct thickness and water consistency of your paint.
Yeah.
And the second thing was an airbrush. So I feel like those 2 things really like level up your painting, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel like airbrush is sort of cheating.
Maybe
totally. I won't feel like that someday. I feel like an airbrush may be like at a point where like I'm just like never going to do that type of deal. Like I probably should, but like I don't know. It seems like a hassle a little bit.
So we've talked about airbrushing at various times on this cast previously. It is initially like before you figure out what you're doing. It probably took me a year of like just using it for base coating before I was really comfortable actually like painting with it. But once you actually figure out what you're doing and figure out the process, it just not only does it make it so efficient to do stuff, but you can do stuff with it that you can't do with a regular paintbrush.
Yeah, it's funny. So for my little hobby thing, I was going to talk about how I'm like kit bashing an ATST, and like I've resin printed all these mud troopers and replacement of stormtroopers. But now that we're talking about airbrush, I picked up an airbrush for the first time to paint because I was like, you know what? This ATST is big. There's a lot of stuff going on this.
Yep.
So I'm going to try it. I literally sprayed paint all over my face the first time I used it. It just exploded back on me. And I was just like, what the? Like I'm like, why? And like it just exploded all over me. So I just had like gray specks of paint everywhere for a couple of days. But I went back, I started figuring it out. But yeah, it's definitely tricky, and it's a little there's a lot to learn, where I thought, because I've been painting, same as you, Kyle, I've been painting for a really long time, and I was like, I got this. It's just a different kind of paint. It's like spray paint. And I just exploded it in my face. I was like, this is bad.
It's totally different.
Yeah, it is. And but yeah, so I'm trying. I started painting the ATST with it and like putting down some base coats, and I got right to, towards the end of the practice, I was getting pretty good, but now I haven't touched it in like three weeks. So now I'm sure I forgot all of that, and I'll have to start over again and get paint all over myself, but it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's economies of scale basically.
Yeah, it seems like. Do you ever airbrush like characters? Like I feel like you
Yes.
don't. You do airbrush characters.
Mhm.
Okay, interesting.
So especially, I need to redo them because my color mix was wrong. But like I airbrush painted Operative Vader. Maybe this was actually before Worlds, before the canceled Worlds, and like there are some like blending, for example. You can essentially do on certain fabrics and stuff. You can basically do blending with an airbrush with just one color in the brush, because the way an airbrush works is you control both the airflow and the quantity of paint. So once you get comfortable with your trigger finger, you can basically you can do like a fade on a model. What are you giggling about, Jay?
It's a real like the first couple times you do it, it's a real like noggin turner for sure, because you're like down back. No.
Oh yeah. It takes getting used to, for sure. But like once you get the hang of it, like you can paint a single model with it and have it be like blended and stuff with just one color in the brush. So yeah, I have painted characters with it. Like I painted my Pathfinders with it. It's great for like cloth and other stuff like that. It's great for droids because they have, they're mostly monocolor and they have a lot of hard edges and stuff like that. So
it seems spectacular for vehicles too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That T40, my T47, I painted with an that was like the first model that I properly painted with an airbrush instead of just base coating it.
Yeah, I mean that I was thinking about, I was practicing on this ATST because I mean it's gray and it's easy to kind of go back over what you mess up, because I literally have a droid army that I primed that's like, Staps and B1s and the tank, and I'm like I'm never going to hand paint this, like I'll it'll never be done, so I'm like I got to learn how to airbrush. Like I have to.
So with one real quick tip for vehicles that really like changed how I thought about them is usually when you're airbrushing or even priming like a normal model, you do zenithal, which basically means that you go from top down, because that's like where the light would be hitting it. So like, a zenithal prime is you prime it black and then you hit it from the top with white, and then it only hits the top of the model with the white paint. With vehicles, you want to make it so that the dark to light goes towards like a focus point, like the front of the vehicle. So this would be like the nose of the ATST. So do the sides of the ATST such that it's like from dark to light progressing towards the nose of the ATST, if that makes sense. And same with the top, and then same with the front surface, such that it's from dark to light towards the nose. So and then it makes it look like it's moving forward. Basically, it's a visual thing.
Look at you.
Yeah,
I like it.
Random hobby tip.
Love it.
I don't use vehicles, so
yeah.
It's because you're not cool.
No, it's because they're bad.
Not all of them.
How dare you?
They're getting better. They're getting better.
T47, AAT, AA5. Those are all good. Saber. Maybe.
I think all the other things that you've listed kind of stand on their own. I think the Saber tank is dead in the water without Padme.
Well, that's fair, but you can take it with Padme.
You can. I just,
All right. Speaking of new stuff, let's talk.
I was gonna say I was gonna argue with you guys, but we're gonna argue about some other stuff. So I'm just gonna hold my argument.
Let's talk about the Wookie Shield real quick, because if we're gonna hit Empire Commanders, we're gonna need a lot of time to do that. So
where is this?
It was on AMG Twitter. It is pinned in the Discord.
All right,
I just want to
make sure I'm talking from a reality-based perspective is all.
Yes.
Go
ahead. It is a new heavy weapon. It says Wookiee warriors only. And there's no faction on this, so I presume you can use this with both versions of both the Republic and Rebel ones. And he has, all right, so this is a flip card. There's a defensive side, Battle Shield Wookiee. It's got 2 black dice in melee, and then it is reduce your maximum speed by 1. You gain armor 1. At the start of your activation, you may flip this card. and then the other side is just 2 red dice in melee with no armor or speed reduction. And it's 26 points, so slightly cheaper than the bowcaster.
I don't know.
You don't know? I think this is stupid good.
This is amazing, man. Like armor 1 on Wookiees. I mean, this basically makes them like 12 wound B2s.
So what? But how many? What's that put you up for points for a unit? Let's say, and the rebels. Like, what are you looking at?
Well, it's less than the bowcaster because I think it's 95.
Oh, I thought you
right?
said. I thought you said more than the bowcaster.
No, it's cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I think
sub
it's
100
95.
point unit for 12 wounds behind armor 1.
Yeah.
Seems
Okay.
I mean,
I get it now. I guess.
so
they do have to reduce. They would be a speed 1 while they have armor 1.
Yeah.
So that's the flip card part of this.
I mean, I sort of feel like I don't know. I don't think you like flip this to the shield side until you're like in melee, or like know that you can charge at speed 1.
Yeah, or the distance is basically not relevant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think the speed reduction, like, is probably there for a reason. You know, like they're like, oh, speed 2 Wookiees with armor 1, probably too good, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the offensive side is like low key, just as good, if not maybe better. You know, like,
Yeah, 2 reds.
you know, what is it? 2 red, 6 black, and if you got tenacity, it's 3 red, 6 black with duelist. Like, that's the best lightsaber in the game by a lot.
Yeah,
You know, like,
assuming you have an aim token. Yeah.
well, and you do, because you take an
You
offensive
take an
push,
offensive
right?
push.
Yeah. So like, and not to mention, offensive push synergizes with the shield dude, because every time you recover, you can flip it, right?
No, this is just like offensive or defensive stance. You just flip
Yeah,
it at the start of your activation.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, that's way better.
Yeah, you just decide like which side you want it on at the start of your activation.
Oh yeah. That's 10 times better than being a recoverable. Like
Yeah.
I assumed it was like the configs or whatever. No, that's really good. That's if flipping it is free. Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. So what did you say? You give it offensive push.
Yeah,
So you're at
offensive push and tenacity. So that
Yeah.
makes them
103.
103, and then you probably
That's
want
the
recon
rebel ones,
intel.
right?
Yeah,
And then recon intel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that'd be 105,
Mm.
as opposed to 112 for the
Opposed to
no,
like
110 for the
136 for
bowcaster.
Death Troopers.
Well, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we're
All right.
comparing it against that, yes.
I'm
This
just
is
making a
much
point.
better. Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
Mike.
Yeah. Not bad.
Everybody can't be Death Troopers.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think this is Wookiees are already good. They don't
Yeah.
I don't think they even really need, like, they don't need this option to be seen play. And you know,
They are one of the reasons though they are good is because they have a very decent range 2 dice pool with Pierce with the bowcaster.
I mean, their dice pool is still decent at range 2. Granted,
Yeah,
they
it
lose
just
the
doesn't-
Pierce.
They
Right?
do lose the Pierce. Yeah.
But really, I mean, they're taking a lot of hits on their way up, right? If you don't have a lot of cover. So even though they have a lot of wounds, just to get to where they're going to be effective with that shield, they're going to be down a couple minis by the time they get there, I would think.
I think if you're using the shield on the way in, like, you're probably netting like plus 3 or 4 wounds on the unit from armor 1. I think, like, it, you know,
Yeah, it'll just take
even-
you longer to get there, but maybe that's fine.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think particularly on the turns where you're like if you're sitting and waiting, I think you just like flip it to the shield side and you're like, okay, this is kind of like my Wookiees are immune to things that don't throw like more than, or like throw things that are like less than 3 dice, you know, like snipers kind of get taken out of the window. Like,
Yeah.
not that snipers are particularly effective against Wookiees, but like you can kill, like taking a Wookiee model out of a squad is generally a thing that you should be trying to do. So
Wouldn't it, but okay, yeah, but with like with fire support and all the dice pools that we have now, like are they going to be as effective? Not that every unit is effective every game, but will they be as effective every game, or are they more of a situational unit where you're like, okay, this game they were really good, but this game they literally did nothing because I couldn't get them into position.
So I think where this fits into the at least current existing meta is like the operative Luke triple Wookiee skew list that we're seeing, that like their sole goal is to get into melee. Like they're taking bowcasters right now, and I think that may introduce a little bit of flexibility, but I sort of think that if they had the option to just do the melee thing better, they probably would just do the melee thing even better. It particularly when the melee thing is cheaper. You know,
or the Cassian Wookiee skews too. The Cassian K2 Chewbacca Wookiees.
Yeah.
Similar setup, I think.
I think like any of those lists that like right now you're seeing the Wookiees just like from turn 1, they're like scouting as close to you as possible, and their sole, like they just are seeing red from the start of the game, and their plan is to like just charge you on turn 2. And I think this is just better than the bowcaster in those lists. I think there are lists where you're going to want the bowcaster, and it's possible this is like a take 2 bowcasters, take one of these guys sort of situation. I can see that too, but I definitely think that like if you're looking for melee threats, like this is a unit that can wipe a clone squad in one hit.
This seems like this seems like a unit that you could probably load in the speeder truck, right? The AA5, and then just like drive them up and be like, okay, go guys. Like, and they just pile out and just like punch the crap out of something.
Yeah, and if you pull up close enough, like you can already have the shield out type deal, right? Like the speed 1 is actually not as big of a deal as you would think it is, because they've got charge, right? So you still get 2 moves to get wherever you're going. Which, I mean,
yeah, I think it's a bigger deal because you had said like a turn 2. I think it would be harder speed 1 if your opponent places correctly. I mean, it all depends on objective and placement, but like I think it makes it harder to get there by turn 2. But
I agree. I also think like Vader's melee threat range would be a lot better if he had scale. Like, I don't know. Like, the whole reason Vader's melee threat range kind of sucks outside of the speed thing is like he can't go over buildings. Wookiees are like, even with his shield, they're like, yeah, we're just going up and over, right? So like,
I mean, they've got the same health and dice rolls as an ATST basically at that point, right? And I mean, sure, the ATST's got full armor, but with everything that's
way
like
more range.
but everything that's like critical 2 or whatever, impact is just, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting alternative to the bowcaster. I don't think it's like auto take over it. But
I think I like Mike's idea of the 2, like a 2 bowcaster and a 1 shield, like that has some play, I think, and you're just like basically opening up a lane for that one, that one unit to just slam into something. It's interesting.
I will say and clearly this shield thing is, I'm sure it's canon for like, I mean, it looks really skinny. Maybe it's got like an energy field or something, but
that's why it's only armor actually... 1.
Yeah, right. It's really more like a pole than a shield.
You definitely can hide less than one Wookiee behind that.
Yes.
thing. Right? Like it's like this is not even big enough for one Wookiee, let alone 4.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. If someone is more like aware of the canon specifications of this shield thing, please let us know. But to me, this looks basically like a surfboard, like a skinny surfboard.
I'm pretty sure it's from Attack of the Clones, and they're
Is that
like
where it's from?
waving them in the air.
Okay.
During
Maybe they're just really fast with it. Like maybe he's so specialized that he sees some stuff coming. He's like, bing, 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 bing.
I'm gonna counter that argument with I think they would like get Agile 1 if they were really fast, right? Like that's the Tauntaun thing, right?
Yeah,
So
all right, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel
I'm
like
just trying to
if I
explain it,
were,
Mike.
I mean,
know you
clearly Wookiees are big and beefy, but if I were a Wookiee, I'd maybe like strap at least 2 of these things side by side.
or maybe
before I
like
put it on my arm.
strap some armor on your furry Wookiee body instead of going into battle naked constantly.
Yeah, but then what's the point?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can't all
I
have
guess.
everything.
Anyway, all right. We have not wasted. We have spent a lot of time talking about things that are not Empire Commanders.
Like
So-
Kyle telling it how it really is.
Let's move on to our main topic here. All right, so I have Legion HQ up because similar to the Rebel situation, there are 7 of these to go over, and I'm sure that we will miss one.
Yep. Let's just get Vader out of the way.
Okay, all right, let's start with Vader.
Then-
So this is a short, quick hit, hot take,
Mhm.
competitive
So-
view of the slot.
I would like to propose. We didn't talk
Okay.
about this ahead of time, so I'm slinging a curveball.
Okay,
here.
please go
I
ahead.
think before we even start talking, I want to go around the bend and just like we all grade each commander 1 through 5.
Okay.
5 being like super good auto take, 1 being like throw it in the trash, and 3 being like okay, you can play it or whatever.
Ooh, we're gonna play a little try by trash. Let's do it.
Yeah. I before we even start talking about it, I want to just like see where we all stand, and then we can defend our positions.
Okay.
Okay,
What was 5 again? Good.
5 is
Five is-
good, 1 is
yeah.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure.
All right, Vader.
Who's
Mike?
2.
Jay.
1.
2.
All right. Palpatine. Kyle.
Let's
explain why?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I guess I'll go first since I gave him the lowest.
Yeah.
Because he's too many points. He doesn't really do as much as Operative Vader. So if you're gonna take a Vader, take Operative Vader. That's why.
Frankly, Operative Vader, I mean, it's a little bit less true now after this most recent points change, but like there was a point where like Operative Vader plus an officer was just like, you get 2 activations for the price of Vader and you get Vader,
Mhm.
I think he's a little bit more justifiable now at 175. I think he definitely suffers from like the same problems Palpatine has from like you can't really fit things in the list because all the Imperial junk that goes around him is super expensive and like doesn't hold their weight very well on their own, particularly their core units. Like you've got to take 3 snipers, which means you're like taking a bunch of stormtroopers or shore troopers, and you can't really like get them out with anything. And yeah, I mean, I want him to be good, but he's just he's not super great.
Yeah, and I guess to go back to my point after hearing Mike, like the point, I'm not just saying Operative Vader's better. What I'm saying is he's more flexible. Like Vader just does a couple things, and that's what he does. The Commander Vader, and so Operative Vader just has a better place because, he can speed up if he needs to, and go speed 2. He can he can do some scatter stuff. He's just got all these other options along with him that Commander Vader just doesn't have. Like I always just feel like Now that everything else is out, like he's just missing a keyword. That's what it feels like. I don't know the keyword. I'm sure we can play that game later, but like I just feel like he's missing a keyword.
So my issue with Vader is one that you guys have touched on already, and it's similar to Palpatine, and it's just that like storms are bad. I mean, and I think that's sort of a core of a lot of Empire's competitive issues right now is, you know, you need like rebel troopers are good because you can not give them an order and they can contribute meaningfully. I think there's maybe some space for, you know, similar to how the Rebel Captain DLT is seeing some play now. I think there's some space for like a Stormtrooper RT-97 Captain unit.
Yeah.
But it's too expensive for a Vader or Palpatine list to run those guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like you can like run them with like other units we're going to talk about on this list, but
yeah, not with Vader. Like you're talking about if you're running Vader or you're running Palpatine, you're talking about like regular storms with one heavy weapon upgrade.
Yeah, like it got to be sub 70.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and what you're doing is it's similar to like the double heavy list that I play, is that you're just focused on getting those pieces in, and then everything else is just not as strong because of that, because you've dumped all this points, and so you have to just take units that just aren't going to perform as well as they could as other units could be, right? And it sucks.
Well, and again, I don't think the problem is that Vader or Palpatine are too expensive. I just think that they don't have a good timing neutral core unit.
Yeah,
that you can take them with.
I also think on the Vader topic, I actually think of the Jedi, Sith, whatever Force users that are in the game, he has a lot of command cards. A lot of them are kind of bad. Like, I mean, they're like uniquely great in some situations.
They're truly situational.
They're super narrow is the issue, right? Like Fear and Dead Men is great if you're like already in the thick of it. Right. You know, Master of Evil is like great if you can get the trigger to go off, but like often you need dodge tokens before you want to play those cards, right? And so you're in like this weird space where you like want to use those cards aggressively because their effects are super powerful, but you really need to use them for the dodge tokens so you can get to the point where you can be aggressive. Yeah. And like I think he definitely suffers from like his command hand is kind of like chaotic and pulls you in like 6 different directions. And what the command hand is telling you is like balls to the wall aggressive. And that's like just not what makes a good Jedi good most of the time, right? Like slow, careful, thought out play is how Jedi work in this game. And like you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna go first and every turn and try and slaughter you. Like that's how you die,
right?
Well, and he suffers from that same thing I think we've been talking about a lot, where he was just made in a different time. Even the command cards just don't help him, because I mean, in reality, maybe it's not a keyword. Maybe it's he needs to surge on defense and maybe needs another health point or two, because I think Vader's supposed to be aggressive and scary, but he just doesn't have the support to be there. Like I know 8 wounds seems like a lot, everybody, but as someone who's played Vader a lot, and Mike can attest to this, you leave him, if you accidentally leave him out to dry, or you miscalculate a saber swing that you were in melee and you thought you were going to be okay, and then you're not, and he's just out, he's gone. It's just, it never goes the way you want it to go, right? And so, yeah, I mean, he is supposed to be aggressive, and I think story-wise and thematically, right, that's Vader. He took care of all the Jedi. He goes in, he messes everybody up, but he was just made in a different time, and this is a different game now, and he's just not as relevant.
Well, and you know, Luke was made in the same time, but Luke has like 4 command cards that improve his defense and are reactive.
Right.
Luke's command hand is like tailor-made for a reactive control piece that's the Force user, right? Yeah. And having, you know, Mike and I had a fun exercise when we were prepping for Canceled Worlds last year, where we basically like swapped lists. Like I played Vader and he played Luke, not against each other.
Yeah.
And And I played a fair bit of Vader also leading up to that, just to like rule him out as a possibility for Worlds. And being a consistent Luke player, it's just like I can't handle that he doesn't have reactive command cards. It's like Arrow 404. Like there's a turn. Yeah. It's multiple turns where I'm like, I just want a card that gives me a dodge token and does nothing else. Literally just that. I want my allies the Force.
Yep.
Well, I think it suffers from the same thing other games like Magic, right? Like if you have like a red aggro deck, like it peters out at some point and you have to be aggressive, like alpha strikes type stuff in the beginning. And then if you're up against a deck that's all about control and you can't aggro fast enough, then you're done, right? And that's, he doesn't have anything in that alpha strike range that makes him scary enough.
Yeah, I do think, we've talked a lot about Wookiees already this episode, but I'm going to kind of slide back because I like that analogy. I think the only like true aggressive lists we've seen work in this game at a high level are like Tauntauns and like Op Luke triple Wookiee spam, right? Like everything else has been like very control or like kind of battle line oriented. There's no I'm just gonna go kill you lists out there outside of the two that I really just mentioned. And if an Empire list like that existed and Vader maybe had something to get him into the fray a little bit quicker, I think that maybe he could work in, like you're suggesting there. But yeah, I'm giving him a 2.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think this is a slight tangent. I do think it's actually a good thing for the most part that those lists, there's not like a lot of those lists that work like that. Because like the Tauntaun lists of the old days, like just feel like crap to play against. You feel like your opponent should have to exercise a little more nuance than just hitting the W key and going straight at you at full speed. Like,
but to that point, right? Isn't that what Vader is? Right.
Well,
that's why except thematically, right?
W key, he's doing the like straight back saunter walk, right? Instead of like the sprint forward.
Yeah.
Well, you're not holding the W key all the way down. It's just a slight.
It's more like a tap every few seconds.
But out of all those units, right? Like he's the one that should be the case, right? And I think they tried to do that with Darkness Descends. It just wasn't enough. Like that just wasn't enough of a card to make that possible.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Vader. Let's do Palpatine next because I think this is related.
Yeah.
To your numbers, Mike.
I'm gonna go with 3.
Jay.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 too.
I want to say 4, but I'm going to say 3.
Ooh, unanimous.
So Palpatine is very different than Vader. It seems like they're similar, but they're not. They're extremely different.
They're could not be farther apart, I think.
Yeah. Agreed.
Palpatine is the control piece that you want a Force. He's like the control piece. Like, there's no one better at controlling an immediate area around themselves than Palpatine is. And I actually think Palpatine, the character, the unit card plus his command cards, is one of the best Force users in the game. If I could take him over Dooku in a droid list, I would. If I could take him over Jedi Luke in a Rebel list, I would. But going back to my original comment, if you take Palpatine, you got to take Stormtroopers.
Yep. Yeah.
You also got to take IRG, which, in fairness, get a lot better with Palpatine.
They get way better with Palpatine, and those earlier caveats would include taking the IRG along with him, not just Palpatine by himself.
Yeah, I mean, when he first came out, I was playing. I don't remember how. I think 10 activation with Snow Flame Troopers and E-Webs, and that was like, steady with pull the strings which is still good. So good. It's just the way things work now with the gun lines. It's hard to get the Snows into a position.
I don't think it is still good. I mean, is it good when it works? Yeah, it just doesn't work anymore.
Well, it's harder to get the Snows.
Yeah.
to where they need to be for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like 300% harder.
Yeah, definitely.
Which basically makes it a non-option.
Yeah, pulling the strings is still great for like, getting units out of danger. It's still great for repositioning stuff. It's still great for making extra attacks sometimes on a powerful unit like Shores, but I think these days if you're running Palpatine, it's like a 9 activation list, probably. And his abilities are amazing. His command cards are amazing. It's just his supporting cast that you have to run him with is not great. So
yeah, and I mean, though it's doable, 9 activation is just a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
So,
and there are still games where like if you can successfully move him up behind line of sight blockers to the center of the table and then like flip an you will die over at the right time, he can literally kill your opponent's entire army by himself. In one turn. That's a thing that happens. I mean, I played Palpatine quite a bit back in the day, and you can just win games that way. Like Palpatine's the only character I feel like, besides maybe Jedi Luke, where you can be just like soundly losing a game, and then Palpatine steps in and is like, "Yeah, this is not okay with me. Let's flip this around." And you go from like soundly losing a game to I've just tabled my opponent. Practically. So
yeah,
there are very few units that can basically take 5 activations off the board, 5 like unwounded activations off the board in like one turn. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think there are any really.
Yeah, I mean, like if Grievous gets lucky, right, it can have a similar effect.
With explosions.
Sabine's ceiling, I think, is a little lower. And it's a little bit more volatile on how much damage it does. But yeah.
So one thing we should do, I do want to real quick go back to Vader, because what we should do is like, if you're running Vader, what are you taking in those upgrade slots? And I expect this to be a short conversation, but I want to make sure we at least hit that.
Yeah.
Saber throw, force push.
You've hit 2 out of 3 of the mandatory upgrades.
Yeah, I think those are absolutely mandatory.
So I actually think the 3rd slot is less mandatory than it was before, but only because there's an option. I think there is you could have a fight between force choke and force barrier here.
I agree.
I don't think it matters a ton, because like saving stormtroopers, like,
man, I just think with Commander Vader though, you still want, I think you want force reflexes. I don't know that barrier.
So here the issue with force reflexes.
Yeah.
Horrible on Vader. I mean, it's horrible just generically, I think, but
I think it's fine on Jedi Luke, but.
Yeah, I think there are some characters where it certainly works a lot better on, right? Like, and it works better when you're multiplying dodge tokens as opposed to like, this is the only dodge token I have access to, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't consider force reflexes an option on Vader anymore. I want it to be, but Vader almost always goes last.
Yeah, well then I guess if it's between barrier and choke.
I'm in choke camp, because I don't think there's a ton of things you want to be barriering most. I mean, like barrier is fine, but I think you're just going to get more out of choke most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, and it's 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, barrier is really good. If you like Snape's sniper team, it's paid for it. So.
Yeah, but if Vader's near a sniper team, then I don't know.
That's the issue, right?
Yeah, like when is Vader near a sniper team?
Right.
Turn 1 when he hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah,
but even then, you probably darkness descended.
Right.
So,
all right, I agree with all those.
Yeah. So
then,
then,
you know who is likely to be near a sniper team? Palpatine.
Yeah. So I think anger, right?
Anger, yes, absolutely stapled.
For sure.
And that's just to work with give into your anger. So he has a name token every time he zaps somebody.
Yeah.
When he says give into your anger, he means and now you will die.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I'm looking at give into your anger, and I'm talking about and now you will die.
I think probably I like Esteemed Leader on him for the commander slot.
Yeah, I think it's either Esteemed Leader or Aggressive Tactics.
Yeah.
Depending on what other units you're running and how you want to use them.
Yeah.
If you're running, so my rule of thumb is if you're running 2 or more medics, you can take Aggressive Tactics. If you're only running 1 medic, that medic is Palpatine's personal surgeon, and you put Esteemed Leader on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do not use that medic for anything else.
Yeah.
Sniper dies, too bad. Sorry. Yeah, that's my rule of thumb for the command slot.
I mean, for me, those are really the only two. I don't know that you put anything else on them.
I think Force Barrier is staple to Palpatine.
I don't think so. I think he's too much. If you've already got anger and Esteemed Leader, you want to put another 10 points on him. I think you're going to need those points.
100%.
I'm disagreeing.
Okay. I mean, Barrier was like tailor-made for Palpatine. I think if there's one unit that you're taking Barrier on besides Dooku, it's Palpatine.
Okay, I'm saying, but with the list that you're going to build him with, you're going to put those 10 points with him to save maybe 2 hits or 1 crit. Like that's what you're off of.
It's not 2 hits or 1 crit. It's 12 hits or 6 crits.
Right. Okay. But off of
Storms, IRG, snipers, shores.
The thing
those are all things you can take with Palpatine.
It's also kind of like secondarily very good because they're already Royal Guard in the list. All of a sudden you sort of get like some weird mitigation flow going on between like I have a medic plus I have a Royal Guard plus I have Force Barrier. You can kind of like move the wounds around a little bit with being able to like, okay, there's 6 hits coming in. I'm gonna Guardian 2. I'm gonna Barrier another 2. And the rest fade against cover, right? And all of a sudden it's like, that like 6-hit clone shot like doesn't do anything anymore. And I think
okay, but you're saying all right. I understand what you're saying. Okay, I get the philosophy, but my argument is you're saying that what's the range on Barrier? Do we know? I don't.
Range
know.
1.
Range 1. Okay. So you're saying that Palpatine, IRG, and then a third unit potentially that you want to save are all within range 1 of each other.
Yep.
For
sure.
For 6 rounds.
For sure. If you're playing Palpatine correctly, yes.
Yes.
Well, what's the third unit then? The medic?
A core unit? You know, Storm, a Shore, whatever.
I would make the argument
Sniper.
that most games you're playing Palpatine well, there are 6 units within range 1 of Palpatine most of the time.
Yeah.
6 might be high, but it's definitely like more than 3 other units that should be like adjacent to him. Because like Palpatine is a support piece, right? Like, I mean, until he goes off, but like he's like the whole shtick is me and the Royal Guard are gonna like make sure the army does cool stuff. And then when it comes time to kind of like combo off, you combo off. And if that becomes a thing. So yeah, I don't know. I like when I played against like Luke Cook at LVO, like Palpatine just like chilled with the army the whole time, you know, and because he's just like moving, pull the strings or, you know, whatever.
Yep.
He's generically staying close to them to use his normal abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Exactly. And that's why you take it on him and Dooku, because they're there already. You know?
Yeah.
That's where they want to be anyways. But yeah, I think it's okay to leave that third Force slot empty and not feel bad about it. I think he's like the only character where you can do that. But he's just really not, you know, all the other stuff is like offensive Force powers that are range 1, you know, Force push, Force choke. The effects on those things are amazing. But you know, they like he's never at range 1 of stuff. Like he needs to be at range 2 of stuff for the most part, and that's it, of enemy units, that is.
All right. Sure.
Jay, how much Palpatine do you have?
So to be fair, when he first came out, like when it was different, the meta was different, right? To be fair, so that's more my experience with Palpatine, was when it was just rebels and Imperials and snow troopers with flame troopers and Palpatine were eating up lists, right? But it was a different time.
It's a different era. I also think that like Jedi lists, like lists that have Force users in them, also like ball up a lot more now. I think just because they're balling up behind line of sight blockers a lot, you know, and you're forced into these like narrow positions because you can't really afford to stick your neck out unless you are willing to take the risk, right?
Right. And
so, I think you see more clumping, which helps the strategy clearly.
Yep.
You know, so.
All right,
that is Papa Palpatine. So it seems like we're consensus on 3 with him.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there were several relatively recent times in the game where he was like a legit 5.
Yes, totally agree. 100% Tauntaun meta, he was 5.
Yeah.
Even probably before that, I think for a little bit there, I think he was a little bit of a sleeper unit in Legion. People didn't really figure him out as quickly as some of the other units in the game.
Yep, I agree. I like, honestly, you know, so I brought him to Nova, but if I had had that experience a year prior, I probably would have brought him to Worlds.
Yeah.
And I can say that confidently.
Yeah, the fact, because I don't think, did anybody play Palp at Worlds?
Yeah, Riha and Kish both did.
Okay, all right.
So, which is telling in and of itself, because you know, Worlds was only 8 people and 25% of the field was Palpatine.
Yeah. Whereas
if you were to look at High Command or any other previous tournament, there was like 1 Palpatine player at each of those, you know. So the fact that a very significant portion of the very few people playing Palpatine made it to Worlds, I think it's telling in and of itself.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to Mr. General Veers.
Okay, cool. Solid 4.
Yeah.
I am gonna say 3. Jay?
I can I have 2 numbers? Can I say 3.5? Situationally, he's good. so I don't know. I'll say 3, even though I really like him.
So the reason I say 3 and not 4 is I think he's got the same problem Leia does, which is that he's basically an officer for more points.
I will agree to some extent. I think he has less of the Leia problem, because I think Spotter 3 is way better than Take Cover 3.
Yeah, that's true.
I just like Veers with binoculars, like handing like 3 aim tokens out to like storms or shores or whatever is like,
yeah, I mean, there is a context in which storms are good, and that's when they have aim tokens.
Right, and that's the thing, right? So, I mean, I think Veers used to be a 5. 4 is a downgrade in my book. I think particularly someone. So it's funny because I actually think there was a time in this game that I would tell you that Veers not having a 2-pip was a downside. I actually think that it's less of a downside now. Like, you actually can ooh, I can fit more command cards. So I also think his 3-pip does something like very unique as far as the recover abilities go.
That's definitely true.
his one pip, take it or leave it. I kind of whatever. But I do think, Jay might be kind of more on the mark, I guess, with where I'm feeling. Maybe he's more of a 3.5 in my book, just because, you are right, Kyle, in that like he does experience the Leia problem a little bit. The fact that he's range 3 though and not range 2 in my book is a big deal.
Well, and I would say the difference is where I don't agree with Kyle is that he has the Pierce 1 and the Search to Crit, which is kind of a big deal, especially when you're dealing with stuff with him. Like he's come and saved my butt a number of times with that shot. And the reason I put him at more of like a 3.5 is because I think he's situationally very good. I think if you're building a list that's going to fully take advantage of what he does, then yes, he's very good. But I don't think like a 4 or a 5 to me is I can almost build almost any list around them and be, and feel really confident that they're going to do well. Well, with Veers, I feel like there's lists where he's going to be amazing and the list is going to be amazing, but it's situational to the rest of the list.
Yeah, that's a fair point too about the gun being range 3. It's just that range 3 with Pierce and Surge Crit is a lot better than a range 2 gun of any kind.
Yeah, it's just such a big difference. Like, yes, his gun is significantly worse, and yes, he's got 1 less sharpshooter value, but like just being able to engage at that range band is kind of a big deal.
It is.
And then the combination of the spotter and the precise 1, like you're basically re-rolling your whole dice pool. Like, like you could, I don't know. 3.5. And I agree with maximum firepower. I've been playing Veers a lot, and I don't even know the last time I used maximum firepower. Maybe against Nima at LVO. And I've played like 30 or 40 games since then with Veers.
I sort of think you could just put the words Pierce 1 on that card and it still might not even be super fantastic.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot better than it is now. That's for sure. But
it's just okay. I find that people, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but people who haven't played against Veers a lot are more scared of maximum firepower than they should be. I mean,
it's still good for if you can hit both models on a strike team or something like that. It's still great for that.
I mean, it depends on what strike team you're shooting at, though.
Yeah, if you're shooting an arc, then you're probably not going to kill both models.
Or even a BX. Yeah. Oftentimes BX have surge tokens from aggressive tactics or whatever, right? I don't know. On average, even if you're denying them cover, you're not killing the unit.
Yeah.
And definitely, I want to point out that I don't think, just before anybody kind of comes at us, I put him at 3.5. I still play Veers most of the time. I still think he's good. It's just, if you're looking at the whole of the Empire, commanders. So that's where I'm at.
So what are you putting in his upgrade slots, if anything?
You put the Binox. That's number 1.
I think it depends on the list. I definitely think I like Binox for sure. I think you're probably, so if you're playing Shores, I still think you're going aggressive tactics, strict orders. I think most of the time. If you're going Stormtroopers, I don't think aggressive is nearly as important. I think you probably just go strict orders and nothing, or something that's helpful to you.
I would say most of the time when you're playing Veers, you probably have at least one vehicle or speeder bikes or something. And so I you have at least 2 things that that want those aim tokens. And then I generally like the third one for either a sniper unit or for Veers himself, depending on what round of the game. And because usually, sorry, this is long, but usually early game, rounds 1 through 3, he's handing 2 out to vehicles or speeder bikes, and then 1 to maybe himself or a stormtrooper, right? Or a sniper. And then 3 and later, it's generally Storms and himself. That's because by the time you get to round 3, vehicles are usually in the mix pretty heavy, and Veers doesn't generally want to be as close as for handing out aim tokens. Just my thought.
Yeah, I think you could actually leave all these naked and not feel too bad about it.
I think that that's fair too.
Yeah,
like I
agreed.
definitely think he's totally fine at 80 points. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's solid.
All right. Since we're on this subject, let's just hit the Imperial officer real quick. Let's do Jay first this time.
3.
Mike.
I'm gonna go with 5.
Also 5.
Man, I disagree. Okay, go ahead.
I think every Empire list should have an Imperial officer in it.
Get out of here.
I mean, I think that there is a subset. Sorry, maybe every is too strong. I think
Yeah, you'd think.
I don't think you need him in-
85% of Imperial lists should have an officer in it. I think you take an officer, you put binocs on him or her, and you just, it's what, 53 points at that point? 45 plus 8.
Yep.
It's 53 points, and it's just an aim token battery giving stuff out. It gives you a source of inspire. Look, I think it fills a role in the army that like Veers is sort of able to fill by himself, but like Empire armies have huge issues with getting enough aim tokens. They have huge issues with dealing with suppression. They don't have great mechanics for that. If you need to, you can throw strict orders on here too to help with that even more. And you don't even need to have them being the issuing order commander. And it's, I think maybe most importantly, a cheap, efficient, and effective activation that can pad an Empire list so that you can take things that actually matter.
Yeah, I think the only list you're probably not taking her in is the like Iden Tactical Strike 333 list, just because you don't have space. But
yeah, I mean, I could see not taking a Palpatine list or something too. Maybe
I
don't know exactly what Palpatine lists even look like nowadays, though, so that might not be true anymore.
Yeah, I think even then you could make a case for taking her in a Palpatine list because, you named 2 things that Palpatine lists are not good at, and that's generating aim tokens and dealing with suppression. So I could see it, or cut one of your snipers or something, throw an officer in there.
Yeah, I go 3 because unlike Mike, I don't believe every list could benefit from this unit, and I think 3 is the middle of the ground, right? That's I'm saying middle of the road. 3. You want, I can see your arguments, Mike, and I understand, but I can see a ton of lists that you would want to take something else over her, just from I don't know, just as an example, something that's similarly pointed, like something with 4 minis in it. Like if you're using them to go grab something, right, you don't want 1 mini that can be shot at. You want to be able to spread your minis out and hide them behind line of sight stuff and have some options there. Or like, if they're grabbing a box, you want to be able to put the other minis around the box. So if the leader dies, you still have an option to grab the box again. I think there's things that a 4-man stormtrooper unit could do that she can't do. And inversely, there's things she can do that they can't do, right? It's just, I don't think it's every list. I think it's just determined on how you're going to play and where you're going to go, what you're going for. So yeah, that's why I said 3.
I would also make the argument that every Empire list should probably have a naked storm unit in it too, for
the
reasons you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I don't think those 2 things are mutually exclusive.
No, but I could see, so for instance, I've been playing this double heavy list, and I was just thinking about, I'm like, wow, I wonder if I could swap one of my stormtrooper units out for her, and like add even more aim tokens to my double heavies, right? And like I was like, oh, okay. So it's making me think about it. I still don't know that she's a 5, but a 3, solid 3.
All right, let's keep rolling here.
But everyone listening, Mike absolutely influenced me there a little bit. I was like,
There you
oh,
go.
Yeah, sure. Not to move off my position.
Would you
but
like
a
to
little.
upgrade to a 4?
No, 3.2.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I've been making you guys go first. I'll go first on this
All
next
right.
one. Director Krennic. 1. Is that too hot takey?
I was waiting for Jay to go.
Sorry, go ahead, Jay.
I'm a 4.
I'll sort of split the difference and go with a 2.
That's not splitting the difference.
Well, I was gonna say I was gonna give him 1.
Yeah, all right.
But I think that might be too bad.
Do you want me to go first since I gave the highest score?
Sure. Go ahead.
So I think I probably would have agreed with you guys, except for I played him this weekend and I was like, man, Cunning and Compel are really good. I like both of those a lot. And I think it's situational, and maybe you could downgrade me to a 3.5 after you guys talk, but I really like his command hand set. I like what he does with Compel. I just think he's a really solid unit. And it's just different than what you're going to do with Veers, right? He just does different stuff. It's more about the control of the command hand and controlling this, how the game is going and how you're going to operate your army. So that's why I give him a 4.
So, oh man. So if you're taking Krennic, you have to take Death Troopers.
This is why I gave him a 1, by the way.
And they're just so bad. I mean, like I want that unit to be good. It's just for their points cost to make them effective. They're just really not good. And so I think that there's a couple problems here. So the first is you have to take Death Troopers because without Entourage, he loses a lot of what he's doing, right? Like without the free order, Cunning gets a lot worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden you're pulling, his 1 pip kind of allows you some manipulation there, but you don't always get you what you want. Oftentimes you're Cunning 1-pipping for either Death Troopers, or if you're doing like a combo thing, you've got like Seize the Initiative going on or whatever. But oftentimes it's Death Troopers. I think the other issue with him is Compel, I think in other factions might be amazing. I think it's just okay in Empire lists, and I think particularly in Krennic lists, there's not a great way to mitigate the suppression you're dealing out. And oftentimes it can get to a point where it really backfires. And if he had like Inspire on him in addition to Compel, which are kind of like a thematic non-bow, I would be more for it,
But Mike, we're auto taking the Imperial officer.
We are,
list.
but you're very right. And I think you would have to.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the ones where like you have to take the Imperial officer to go along with Krennic. And I also think that it's similar to Leia. I think the range 2 problem is a big deal. I see a lot of people take Binox on Krennic just to give him something to do. And yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Kyle.
I'm basically with you. I actually think his command cards are still good.
Oh, I mean, his 1 and 2 pip are good. His 3
Annihilation Looms is bad. Yeah, but the 1 and 2 pips are sufficiently good enough that the effects on those cards, especially when combined with Cunning, are great. Compel is, I agree with pretty much everything you said about Compel. It is a solution to get your Courage 1 core units moving, which I think is, like if Vader or Palpatine had Compel printed on their cards, that makes Stormtroopers 100% better in those lists. But both of those commanders also have high courage. With Krennic, you're getting up to 4 courage or 4 suppression on those core units pretty quickly, and it starts getting to be an issue.
I also think like the fact that it's has to be a move action is very important, like, because it's not actually making those units more effective. If you could aim shoot, I think this might be a different conversation.
Yeah, totally.
As far as how compel works, like if compel was just take a suppression, you get your action back, I would be more in Camp Krennic, I think.
Yeah, agree. And then just Death Troopers. It's funny because there was a time in the game when they were like right after they came out, they were dominant. They were like top meta. But they've always been weak to snipers, and we've basically had between Arcs and Cassian and Iden, we've had like more reliable, more consistent snipers enter the game. And when your opponent with his 3 Arcs can just like pick up 3 to 4 Death Troopers a turn, without rolling dice, like that's a value town.
So okay, so this is where I'm going to counter, because I think that when we're building lists, and maybe this is just my viewpoint and why I see things differently than you guys, right, is that I feel like sometimes when I'm building these lists, I'm trying to build like an all-comers list, and I'm not thinking about specifically Arc troopers, or like I know that's going to be bad and I'm going to need to play them differently that turn. But I mean, I think Death Troopers are still good, and I think that not great, just they're fine, they're good. And I think a lot of that comes from that range for the their what is it, the E11D, and then having that on there and all the other keywords that they have, plus the extra order. I think there's room for that. I think it's just finding the other players in the list to make that Krennic list do well.
I think your premise there is sound. My sole issue with Death Troopers is that they are too expensive for what they do. And I actually think overall, for a trooper unit in the game, they have exceeded the amount that any faction should pay for any unit that like doesn't have access to command cards and stuff. Like, just for the config and the DLT trooper, you're at 118 points before any bells and whistles. Like that is a lot. you know, like that's we're talking like that unit is in like a vehicle armor territory for like what it's supposed to be able to do, and it does not hold up under fire with the amount of long range pierce in the game right now.
But not to, because this isn't a good unit either. But but I would say that I think it's better than the LAT. Like I think it throws more dice.
Well, that's because everything is better than the LAT.
But I think, and this is an argument for Krennic, not for Death Troopers, but we're kind of on Death Troopers. But
it is the same thing though, basically.
Yeah, I think that if you can build the rest of the list to kind of help you, like I feel like every piece has to have an answer to something, and I think Death Troopers help with the impact, they help with the rerolls, they help with the auto order. Like I think there's a lot of help that they offer, and it's just something that you're going to have to understand that it's going to be a lot of money or points that you're spending on, and you're going to have to build the rest of your army accordingly.
Yeah, to me it's just one of those things where like at the time Death Troopers came out, Death Trooper damage output was one of the highest in the game. At this juncture, they're like much more average as far as how much damage they deal past cover. Like, you know, you could take a 93 point phase 2 squad.
Okay, okay. So we got to stop doing this, because I know I understand what other factions can do, but I'm saying within the Empire faction, I'm playing Empire. Right, they're still one of the best output units in Empire.
I mean, I'm not sure that's true. Like Imperial Special Forces are, how much are they after offensive push?
Okay, they're all range 3 though, right?
I mean, they're range 3, but they also have infiltrate, so they get to be where they want to be, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
true. Yeah,
you know, I mean, like
they're 101. Right,
101 with all the upgrades you need on them, right? Whereas Death Troopers are 118
before you give them training upgrades and stuff.
Yeah,
before you give them recon intel.
Sure, I get that, but I think part of that money that you're paying is the free order, some of the other stuff, the extra precise, the precise 2, the what's that other thing that they when they take a standby they get an aim, like not that that's great, but it's nice to have. It's nice to have an option like that. I think they're just better in different ways, but that's my view. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather have a RT-97C Captain DLT Stormtrooper unit for 86.
Yeah.
For 32 points cheaper for 6 bodies that does comparable damage at range 3.
sure.
Anyway, all right. Kallus. Jay?
Go ahead. All right. I'm between a 4 and a 5, just because I haven't played him enough. But I think if we play him more, he's going to be bordering on 5.
Mike?
I'm gonna go with 4.
I'm also going to go with 4. I think this is a similar conversation we've been having. His abilities are great. Contingencies is great. Cunning is great. His command cards are good. The 1 pip's whatever. But his 2 pip is amazing.
Yeah.
And his 3 pip is good. It's just like, if you're running Kallus, what are you running him with?
Yeah, I mean, I think he could almost not have contingencies printed on his card unless you're running him with Vader. And
Vader,
so, like
yeah.
if you're not running him with Vader, contingencies doesn't really matter. And which is fine, I think.
Empire is just not like the Rebels, where you're running like 3 or 4 characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I also think that like his gun feels like a little bit too expensive to me. I don't know. Like, I wish he was like 5 to 10 points cheaper when you compare him to like Cassian. And yes, they're different units, but like the fact that Cassian like has all his bells and whistles at like 100 points, and like Kallus is at what, like 115 before,
Yeah, with this gun.
And Kallus has like a flaw card, which I don't think is that bad, but he does have a downside, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely the least bad flaw card.
It's
for
definitely
sure. Yeah.
But it's like an inbuilt disadvantage, right?
Yep.
That is like meant to be there. So like if you have a flawed card, like you should just be cheaper than things that don't. But I mean, I think he's got a good kit. You take offensive push on him, you take ascension cables, you take his weapon, you benefit from a couple free recovers. I think he's like just okay. It'll like a lot of he's a very all-rounder. To me, he's and I think this is kind of the issue with Kallus, and the reason he's not a 5 in my book, and we're going to talk about Iden next, is that like he's an all-rounder who's not super great at anything outside of like comboing with another piece, and in order to do that, everything is just kind of too expensive.
And the reason why I'm like top of 4 leading into 5, and this could change, right, as I get more practice and like do some more list theory stuff, but Mike and I talked on our After Dark podcast with an operative Vader list, and it opens, because he's an all-rounder and like what I like calling like an all-comers, he's good for an all-comers list. He just opens up options for you that maybe weren't there before with other units, and I think that's what makes him great, where you now operative Vader seems viable with him. Like, I mean, he just opens up a whole another plethora of game style and gameplay that I'm really excited to explore. And so maybe my top of 4 is just excitement to get him, get more reps with him, but I'm really excited for what he can bring to Empire.
Yeah, I'm also excited, specifically as you mentioned with Operative Vader. I think that's where you're definitely getting the most value out of your contingencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're running him with Bosk, you're just, it doesn't really functionally change your command cards that much, because Bosk has 3 and Kallus has 3.
Yeah.
And maybe you put like coordinated fire or something, and I don't know. But you're not going to run a 3 character list with Empire, probably, like you are with.
I've seen some people running like double bounty with him. It feels kind of gimmicky, and that like
That
we're
feels
running.
so expensive.
It gets really expensive.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I think the idea there is like you have contingencies, so you can take all these like situational command cards, right? Because Boba's cards specifically are like very situational, and contingencies kind of allows you to leave them at home when you don't need them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Maybe that's probably the only context where I could see like a 3-character Empire list.
totally. Yeah, I agree.
But otherwise, yeah, I think he's fine with Operative Vader.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is crazy, but like something Evan and I were like talking about and thinking about was like, and I don't know if it's good, right? That's just theory, but like, is an Agent Kallus, Director Krennic, where you're just getting cunning like on every turn, you know what I mean? So I don't know if you can make the rest of it good. I'm just, you know, it's just a thought of like, hey, can you have cunning every turn and do something with that? I don't know what the rest of the list would look like in order to make that work.
I like the premise. I think the issue
Yeah.
there is that like you don't have enough points left over to put anything good to use cunning in your list,
Right,
right?
like, yeah, right, and that could very well be right if you're. But I mean, you're no more expensive. I mean, you're a little bit more expensive than Palpatine, I guess, but maybe not with his upgrades. But yeah, I mean, and you got 2 activations and your priority every turn. I mean, I don't know. It seems like maybe somebody could make that work. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of like a cunning thing, but I think generally speaking, cunning is not very good on cards that are not 1-pips. Like sometimes you want cunning on the 2-pips, but often like the 2 and 3-pips, you would rather not win those roll-offs a lot of the time. And cunning is kind of a downside there. And I'm not saying cunning is bad because it's amazing, but it's not all upside.
Yeah, but maybe that's where contingencies comes in, right? And then you have then you've got some of the generics in your back pocket to just kind of toss out. It's just an idea. I don't know, right? And that's I kind of went in with him going, I don't know. We haven't got enough table time with him yet. Like I think he's a 4, but he could be a 5.
I mean, I could even see running it with Iden. Iden has 4 good command cards.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Speaking of Iden, number.
Why don't you go first, Kyle?
5. Is 6 an option?
I was actually going to say 6, so
yeah, I'd put her at a 5 as well.
Wow, look at that, unanimous.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is a hot take to say that she's the best Empire commander, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's the best Empire commander. It's not particularly close. It's you know, her command cards are all, I think, either average or very much above it. Dio's command card is one of the most unique and powerful in the game. You know, her 1-pip is great. Her generic 2-pip is like kind of meh, but her 3-pip's amazing. Entire lists have been built around it.
I mean, the generic 2-pip has a recover on it, and you know, a range 2 weapon with blast and 5 red dice. So it's not like it's fine.
When I'm saying it's fine, you know, context, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, I think it's fine in
for
comparison
a 5
to the rest of her commander.
Right, for a 5 rated commander.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not given to your anger ISB investigation,
no,
right?
It's not.
But yeah, I mean, she's got a 4th command card, I think, which is already kind of a big deal. And she's just super flexible. You know, I think being able to, I think when she originally came out, we were like, oh, the sniper's not very good. I actually think that in today's meta, the sniper is kind of like maybe the only thing keeping some Imperial lists alive against clones. You know, having a 4th sniper that can just like push 2 crits through cover is kind of a deal. You know, and being able to covert ops and quick thinking, she's got 7 health with Dio plus a shield,
plus maybe situational awareness and nimble.
Yeah, she's got all the things. To me, Iden is like the Imperial version of Rex, as far as versatility, flexibility goes.
Well, it goes back to that like sports analogy that they always say, like, is your team occasionally great or consistently good? Right. And I think a lot of these commanders have the occasional greatness, but she's just consistently good. Like, she's going to put out for you every game. She's going to, that's not what I meant, Kyle, but she's going to,
I apologize on the behalf of Jay.
Yeah. Well, things are said, but you guys know what I mean. Like, she's going to change the game and affect the game in everyone that she's in. And I think that's why she's a 5, right?
Yep. I mean, she's super tough. She's super versatile. Her damage is very good. Her command cards are great. Tactical strike, like the quintessential Iden list is Iden with 3 Imperial Special Forces with the T-21 and offensive push. And then you can kind of, I've seen people run that with Shores. I've seen people run it with like bikes. You can do some weird stuff with the rest of that list, but the core basically is that you've got an alpha strike of 4 units that you just plot behind a line of sight blocker into your enemy's army, and then you peekaboo on the first turn with tactical strike, and you just kill like 3 to 4 units.
It's really good.
Yeah. So anytime you can basically like remove luck from the equation in the same way that tactical strike combined with marksman does, you're talking about the good stuff.
Yeah, marksman plus like free aim tokens and stuff is kind of like printing money. I don't know. It's good.
Yep. Yeah, anytime you can essentially just not roll dice.
Yeah. It's just like you're taking variance out of the equation to some degree.
Yeah, you're basically like pointing to an opposing unit and being like, roll X number of saves. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else to say about Iden?
Nope.
Always take Dio. That's how I feel about it.
Always take Dio. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
What about her training upgrades? Offensive push and situational awareness?
Yeah, I think she's one of the few commanders on this list where you maybe always fill all her slots.
Yeah.
Whoa. We're okay with that, but what I said is off base. Come on.
Yes.
What? Yes.
All right. So yeah, offensive push, situational awareness. I also think you probably take ascension cables, and you clearly take her repeater and sniper rifle.
I think you could actually take her without the gun.
I've seen people do that. I don't love it. I understand why they do it, and that it makes her cheaper and more efficient. I strongly think you need that repeater when you're facing down hordes of B1 battle droids.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is the argument basically is like, well, if she's going to be at range 3 anyway, which is where you want her, like the E11 on her card is really not that much different than the sniper rifle because it has native pierce and she has marksman,
Yeah.
But it is wildly different than the repeater against white save units. So yeah, I'm with you on that one.
And particularly when she gets to range 1 and you all of a sudden have an 8 die attack.
Yeah, when you throw Dio in there.
Yeah. I also think there is a case to be made, albeit maybe a bad one, for tenacity.
No, I don't think that's a bad case for 2 reasons. One, you can pair it with offensive push in loadout if you want.
Yeah.
But 2, like she's got 2 red dice. Dio's got 3 white dice. So you're talking about a melee pool of 3 red, 3 white with marksman.
3 red.
Yeah, it's 3 red.
So do we even care about loadout on her at all?
I think you do because of the repeater sniper rifle deal.
Yeah.
Being able to like flex between I'm dealing with clones this game or I'm dealing with droids this game, I think is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think like you just gain some like flexibility stuff here. It's worth talking about the one slot that is kind of hidden on her command card too. That
Comms.
I think is comms. I actually think HQ uplink is sort of justifiable on her if you're running in her in a list with multiple characters. She does have a free recover card, which allows you to get it back. It's a little pricey, but I also don't hate taking HQ uplink and being able to load out into comms jammer. That can sometimes be situationally very good.
Yeah, you get her up into a B1 horde with comms jammer. That's gonna be a real sad day for those B1s.
Yeah, you just like take like the tenacity, version with comms jammer, and she's just like in the middle of it, killing B1s with basically a lightsaber and making sure none of the get orders, and she can like do weird coherence things with comms jammer because of Dio.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things there about that.
Agree. All right. Well, that is all. We have successfully hit all of the Imperial Commanders.
We did it, boys.
Except for the field commanders, but yes.
Yeah, well, we'll hit those when we do heavies. Yeah.
I can't wait for that episode.
I know, Jay.
That's going to be my jam.
Yep.
Real excited.
I think we. So actually, is it next week that the LAT and the AA5 come out?
I think
I hope not.
Friday. This Friday is the street date. Mine are going to be here tomorrow. Yeah, Mike.
Because I think we're moving into the new AA5 meta is what I think we're moving into. I mean maybe clones will keep it down, but I think AA5s are just might be just like in every rebel list ever.
They're going to be common. I still think it remains to be seen how, like, I mean, you're paying essentially 100 points for something that doesn't have a gun, for a heavy unit that doesn't have a gun.
Yeah, I mean,
like, clearly you can put a bad gun on it, but
I hope it is not as good as I think it is, because then it will be just good enough, I think.
Yeah.
To see play and be fair and things like that. It seems like it is doing a lot of powerful things by itself that are normally like effects from like command cards.
It has some very good support abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, I've got this AA5, therefore I get to play like these 2 to 3 like command card effects before the turn starts without playing command cards. It's kind of like, ooh. I mean, if it's healthy for the game, and it may be, I'm all for it. I think what it's doing is really cool. I hope there is space in the game for that. I'm just a little nervous because we haven't seen a unit like this before, that it's potentially a little bit of a power creep issue. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
You know what I'm really excited for, boys? I'm going to tell you.
What's that, Jay?
I am actually really excited for onboard was it comms channel, because tanks to E-webs, that's a real exciting combo for me. So
but like, do you really care if the E-web has an order, and is it worth giving up LTA?
yes.
Well, the thing is, you put an LTA on the E-web.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I guess.
Because for at least 4 of your turns, you have 4 to 5 activations that are just ready to go whenever, and for a heavy list, that's like really key.
I also think that it's possible that we could see like aggressive tactics have a little bit of a comeback, in the like you can put surge tokens on the E-web and the tank, and I don't know.
Now that I could see.
Right, like I think you can kind of use it to build a shell that wasn't entirely there before, like 2 tanks, 2 E-webs, plus like aggressive tactics.
Yeah.
Like that might be a murder machine, you know.
That I could see, because then you're actually getting extra tokens instead of essentially just transferring your aim token from a tank to an E-web.
Right.
Well, I like the idea of the activation control too, like especially in it's nice to have those waiting, right, until because and sorry, I know we're trying to end here, but like with the double heavy list, right, the whole thing is about waiting for your opponent to do stuff to then strike. And so if I now have 4 activations that are just waiting for you to do something, and it just gives me a lot more options in a double heavy list.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want to pull that E-web when your tank's out of position.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jay.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.